A pleasant morning it is to all Zimbabwean. Welcome to Zimbabwe Daily. My name is Yvonne Muchaka, and this is Frank Talk with Yvonne. On this program, we bring to you all the topical issues of interest and we interrogate them until we get to the bottom of it. Yes, we have all been complaining and saying things are not working in Zimbabwe, but so what? What is the problem? Where is the problem? How do we resolve that problem? And how do we work and map out the way forward for our country to work again? This is our Zimbabwe, and we only have this one shot to make it great. Thank you so much for joining me today on the special water series where we are bringing you urbanization and the impact or effect on water supply. And in the studio, I have a panel of guests who are going to help me to unpick this particular subject. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Good morning to all of you, and welcome to Zimbabwe Daily's Frank Talk with Yvonne. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves fully. So please give us your full portfolio as you introduce yourselves. Over to you, Engineer Mbiza.
Okay, good morning, Zimbabwe, and good morning, the world. My name is Engineer Happy Mombiza, and I am the Executive Director of a Zimbabwean registered company called Vemex Water Systems, which is into urban water supply systems, and also focuses mainly on water quality and then treatment of both water and wastewater. So my background is in urban water engineering, and basically dealing with issues of water supply again, and wastewater, and also stormwater, and
Right.
that's the short brief that I can give you for now.
Awesome. Thank you, Engineer. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Mawesera.
Shangwa Mavesera is my name. I am the former town clerk for Bindura municipality, having left at the end of 2020. I have worked in urban local authorities at senior level for 21 years, and most of those years, or half of those years, were in settlement management and housing, where the water issue is quite critical. And the other half was as town clerk, where again I was critical and pivotal in the development of or the services in our urban local authorities, being the secretary to the Town Clerks Forum, a member of the Presidential Committee of the Urban Councils Association, and also a leader in the service level benchmarking, where the issue of water and sanitation was very critical, and we were driving it to ensure that the water situation and the sanitation situation in this country, in our urban areas, improve for the better. So I'm quite eager, even in my retirement, to proceed and offer consultancy under my consultancy firm, and also assist all those who may want assistance in the area of management, because the issue of water, in my view, is a management issue. All services are management issues. The others come in as technical people to then drive that process. So that's who I am. That's where I want to be. And I would want to enter into these discussions and assist in the best way that I can.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Mawesera. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kudzai Chatiza. I work as a development consultant based in Harare. My areas of interest can be clustered as local governance, and I'm a student of the sector. I also teach on local governance issues, on planning issues. I research and consult to government, to non-governmental organizations, and other interested organizations that speak to issues of water, issues of sanitation, issues of rural and urban development. I'm trained as a planner, a spatial planner at the University of Zimbabwe, and I consult on policy issues. I consult on strategic management issues, and I work quite closely with the ministry responsible for local government, which I consider to be my home ministry. And in that respect, I then work with a number of urban and rural local authorities. So that's my brief. The company that I am associated with is called the Development Governance Institute. The naming is from the belief we have that if we don't govern ourselves effectively and properly, everything else we may want to do will not be successful, because our way of relating, our way of managing public affairs, if it's not spot on, then all ideas will not necessarily see the light of day. So I'm glad to be part of this conversation, and I will contribute to the best of my ability, as I'm also interested in making sure that our country begins to work again, because it used to work very well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me in this conversation. And I'm so glad that we are able to come together. At the end of the day, this is our Zimbabwe. Now, I want to come to you, Mr. Mawesera. Ndimondo Tanga now at this particular juncture, because you have been in those positions as the town clerk and in management, as you have mentioned in your portfolio. Now, how has urbanization affected the ability of councils to supply water to its residents?
Urbanization.
Mr. Moesela, sorry, we couldn't hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm saying the first port of call is that we ask ourselves, what is urbanization? Which basically is the movement of people from rural areas to urban areas, where we have people concentrated, which is different from what they are in the rural areas. This means that the culture of service provision changes drastically, where each one of us, each family had a well from where they could fetch water. Urbanization means that that culture changes. They can't dig wells at their individual properties. They then have to come together, elect some of them, who we call councillors, who then will employ experts and say, we put our money together and we give you the money. When we give you the money, then you work with those resources to ensure that each household or each family or each property gets water. So the whole scheme changes, where all the 2 million people in Harare or the 900,000 people in Gweru drink from the same source, managed by a single management unit. So that's urbanization for you in terms of water supply. It now means that that supply has to be managed. This supply has to match that population. Where you have 50 people who are having that water and a facility to supply the 50. When they increase to 100, you have to increase the supply of the water. So urbanization basically has affected the supply of water, firstly, as I've already said, in terms of numbers. The numbers that increase, that come together, that then we have an urban area, will put pressure. When the numbers increase, the pressure increases. And therefore, we need to upgrade our water supply sources. Secondly, urbanization brings in different people of different cultures, of different, who have different ways of living. And you have to put all these people together to be able to contribute towards the water, to be able to manage that water. Because it's not just the management is employed by council that will manage the water. Every citizen will have to manage that water so that the water supply is adequate or affected our water supply in the sense that in Zimbabwe, we have not been able to upgrade our water sources in terms of the raw water sources themselves, the dams. You can look at Bulawayo, you can look at Harare, you can look at Gweru. The water sources have remained the same. Secondly, our treatment plants have remained the same for a long time. whereas our population due to urbanization has been growing, and therefore there's a deficit in terms of water supply. There's also been, because of the increased number of people, employment has not come easy. And therefore people are not earning as much as would facilitate that they pay for the water adequately to produce more water for them to drink. So that again has affected water supply, because people can't afford to pay for it, but it has to be produced. And therefore there's a deficit.
Right. Mr. Mawesera seems to be frozen in time, network issues. But all the same, I think he raises a number of fundamental issues that I really think we now need to look at and interrogate. I will come to you, Dr. Chatiza, as a development consultant in local government. What advice do you give them? I mean, these are the basic things that we all know, even in our small households. The moment we have 2 or 3 more people coming in to live with us, automatically the pot changes. And normally you don't see, just because you're visitors, somebody going out to buy a pot, but the pots are already there. So this is just the basic economics that as a mother and as a wife, you get to know that you need to have different levels of pots to cater for different occasions and situations. Are our local authorities aware of the continued need for growth and continued need for planning ahead of the population? Should it be that because now we were 50 people, now that there are 100 people, we increase our capacity to cater for the 100 without looking at the cumulative growth that is taking place on a daily basis?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think Mr. Mawesera raised a number of strategic points. And what will be important for me is to build on what he has also said, so that we can address the question you are raising perhaps more systematically and in a complementary manner. When he spoke about the change in culture, let me also expand on that concept and address the issues that relate to the structuring of the models of financing of services. It changes also when you move from less people in urban areas to more people in urban areas. And one of the characteristics of urban areas is that they are planned and they are governed according to specific rules. You also start paying for services, which you perhaps ordinarily you would have self-provided, which is at times free. The other advantage that also comes with the properly managed urban areas is then when you have your economies of scale, you are then able to spread the cost across a bigger population. And you are then able to modify your spaces and re-engineer both society, but also in terms of the built environment. So when we talk about urbanization, I would argue that we need to talk about it in a very positive way, because one of the things it does in terms of water supply is it frees up the natural environment by making sure that people are concentrated in the smaller spaces that are planned and properly engineered so that they are convenient. And then you can then have the services like water being cutted from outside the environment you call urban. So where an urban area is properly managed, where an urban area is properly planned and then developed, the finances are working very well. The numbers of people that are in urban areas, if all of them are paying for their bills, like one said I was saying, then you are able to finance the delivery of those services. So the advice that often is missing is about how do citizens, and their local authority, because the local authority or a local council, like I come from Zaka, I stay in Harare, I also have a presence in Mutare. The local authority is our local authority. So how do we engage through our representatives, but also directly as citizens, to be able to then make sure that all of us are contributing to the bills that are necessary for us to have the appropriate services that we all desire. So it is important for us to look at urbanization not as a problem, but as a model that can, if well managed and sustainably managed, it can then enable us to be able to provide services, and it can free up space that then we can then generate water from our catchments that are outside the urban areas where we are concentrated. So the financing of infrastructure development is a fundamental question that we need to strengthen our local governments to have the right finances and the access to both resources as well as the support of their residents. So at the moment, we are not yet there. The point to also add about the challenges we're facing is, apart from what Mr. was saying in terms of infrastructure expansion, we also are generally facing climate change. So some areas are getting drier. We may think it's not happening because in 2020, 2021 season, we've had very heavy rains. But in other seasons, we've had drier seasons. So it is important for us to look at climate change, infrastructure, and the funding aspects, both for infrastructure, but also in terms of making sure that we're viable local authorities. Because it doesn't just happen. We need to strengthen them. So that's the area where, in terms of my general advice is, we need to have our public institutions that are working so that they're then able to attract the right representatives and employ the right technical people that can deliver services to us. If we don't want to do that, then we get what we are investing in.
Right.
I will stop for now. Yeah.
Awesome. Engineer Mbiza, you are an engineer, and here are the presentations that our consultants have raised. What is your own opinion?
Definitely that I totally agree with what both of my colleagues have just said. And
Engineer Mbiza, I
my
think your audio is a bit low. Your audio is a
Okay,
bit
can you
low.
hear
We
me
can
now?
hardly hear you.
Can you hear me now? Is this
We,
better?
we can hear you, but you're quite subdued. I don't know if you
Okay,
can
is it better now?
amplify your voice, maybe.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I was saying, I would like to agree with what my colleagues have just said, especially concerning the issues to do with the unquestionable need for the people who are being provided with the service to pay for service provision. Um, this actually goes without say. Everything that is being done by our local authorities is being done at a cost, and that cost need to be made. It needs to be made by someone. So I believe that there is need for the ratepayers to make sure that they own up and pay for the services, so that the councils themselves are actually able to then provide the service properly and adequately. So that would be my first contribution. And then
Right.
my second and probably one of the most important contributions that I will make today is that there is actually need for us. When I say us, I mean us as a nation, to really get to understand our problems, because problems differ as much as they look like it's the same thing we are experiencing in the Blue Air, is the same thing we're experiencing in Harare, is the same thing we're experiencing in Mutare. Um, on the ground, when you're now trying to proffer the solutions to these kinds of problems, you realize that it's not one size fits all,
Mm.
you know. So there's this very important aspect of getting to understand
It seems our engineer is also frozen in time. So I think he makes.
specifically to each.
All right. Thank you so much, Engineer Mbiza. Were you done with your submissions? Because I think you froze in time.
No, no, no. I was still going on.
Okay, please
I was
continue.
actually still okay, but I realized that I was kind of frozen here. Yeah. So I was saying, we need to get to understand when we are going to be sustainable. these are going to be sustainable solutions. And we have
Okay.
to customize. We have to customize our solutions to specific problems, which then brings in the issue of
All right. The challenges of using networks, our networks keep freezing us in moments, but I think you raise issues to do with ratepayers owning up so that councils are able to do their responsibilities. You also mentioned that there is need for us to understand the problem that we have and to customize solutions for each specific space. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. You're joining us right here on Zimbabwe Daily. We are talking urbanization and impact or effect on water supply. Thank you, Jaso Jaflex Seed. You say millions of Zimbabweans and fellow Africans for the past years flocked to South African cities and their population increased drastically. But until today, the cries aren't as in Zimbabwe. Thank you so much, Seed, because it's an issue that I think our panelists are going to speak to. St. Francis, you say on bills, why are councils quick to disconnect and penalize poor people in the ghettos, and yet is the rich, especially politicians, who default on paying water and electricity bills? Thank you so much, St. Francis, for coming through with your contribution. And I think we want to move. I had asked this question and I had not gotten a response. And my question was, why are our councils failing to plan with the future in mind? Mr. Mawesera spoke about no new infrastructure in place, that we have not upgraded our water systems, and the challenges of increased unemployment affecting even bill payment capacity by the people. Now, if those who planned before us came on board and planned for us until maybe about 15 or so years back, what is it that has made our councils fail to plan for the next 20 or 25 years ahead of us? Mr. Moise.
Thank you very much. I would answer it in a number of ways. One is that planning was being done and planning is being done. But you have sometimes what you call exponential growth. What it means is growth that is uncontrolled. If in disease management, we call it an epidemic. When such things happen, we don't expect normal reactions, and we don't expect to win that battle or war within a few days. The fact that it's an epidemic, it calls for a lot of other people and enhanced resources outside what you had planned for. Now, urbanization has become such one where the influx of people from rural areas to urban areas has been exaggerated over the past years, to the extent that it became, for lack of a better word, a pandemic for urban areas, where the planning process could not catch up with the numbers that were coming. Now, that calls for slightly different approaches, just like we did with cholera. We needed slightly different approaches, like we are doing with COVID-19. We are using slightly different approaches. So when people look at it, they seem to look at it as a normal way. We have a normal growth rate, population growth rate that we know. And if we follow that, and then there's this exponential growth, then we are found behind. Let me look at a few points where urbanization becomes an issue in terms of that water supply, because of the numbers that came in. We have illegal settlements, because the planned settlements are not enough for the people, but the people are coming. They have to pitch tents somewhere because they have come. But the planning will take a bit of time for us to plan for that settlement and make sure that it's fit for settlement. It has roads, it has water, it takes us time. But the people that have come, they were already there. They have tents, they have shacks. So that's an issue in terms of water supply, planning, and population and urbanization. We also have a lot of unplanned settlements.
Right.
Where people, because they are in Bari, the children have grown up, they have to go somewhere. They can't stay in those two-roomed houses with their own wives and children. They have to set up somewhere. So all those issues are issues that then come in outside the planning process. We also have transit population that has increased. It's part of urbanization. When people cross from Mutare to Gweru, they pass through Harare, they need water and they use water. You also have day populations, people from Mutoko who come to sell tomatoes. They use water, but they are not part of this planning process where we're planning houses and tapped water. So those are issues that need to be looked at. When we look at densification, an area was planned. It's Ganil. It was planned. And we find that the stands are too big. We want to densify, we then break them into each one into 2 or into 3. But the water, the pipe that was supplying water to Ganil has remained the same. But we've increased the number of houses and therefore households and therefore people.
Does that then not poor planning, Mr. Mawesera? Does that then not speak to poor planning? Because all that you have said is very key and fundamental, and indeed, these are the things that we are seeing in our country and in our major cities. But if we then say there's exponential growth, so our planning is lagging behind. So it means that something is wrong with the way we plan. Something is abnormal with the way we are seeing things. Maybe I'm speaking from a layperson who is not actually involved in the technical work, but I think as a country and as leadership in planning and urban development and stuff like that, we feel there has been a letdown in that area. Because if you know that in Bari we have a couple that stays in a 2-room and they've got 3 children, we will know that after 21 years, those children are going to be adults and they're going to start their own families. Why are we not planning ahead? I'll come to you, Dr. Chatiza. What is wrong with our planning systems?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that we can say about the planning systems, but again, we need to find a way of untangling the forms of planning that we would then be talking about. So, if we're talking about the long-term infrastructure planning, we have institutions other than just our individual local authorities that are involved in that. So there are a number of examples that we can give in terms of water-related infrastructure, particularly for raw water, where that responsibility is largely a central government responsibility. So when we're talking about our inadequacies in planning of infrastructure, then we need to spread the attention across a number of stakeholders and across a number of levels. But when we are also talking about spatial planning or physical planning for individual local authorities, again, that is a responsibility that in the main is a responsibility of an individual local authority. But again, in terms of managing long-range planning, like coming up with master plans, which then inform the kind of infrastructure within an area of jurisdiction of an individual local authority. Again, national government has a role to play in terms of supporting that form of long-range master planning or physical planning. Again, we've not fared very well in that respect. A few of our urban local authorities have up-to-date master and local plans. And post-2000s, part of that was also affected by the way we managed the peri-urban land development and land access, because it created a number of challenges in terms of the extent to which the local authorities would be able to get that land, plan it properly. Because the challenge with not planning properly is this. When you have not planned land access using the formal institutions, it becomes difficult for you to plan financing of placement of infrastructure on that land that has been accessed using formal institutions. You will then not be able to enroll those people that have settled on that land that have been accessed in a different or alternative model onto the role of your local authority for them to be able to contribute like other citizens to the services that they require. So we can't say we have local authorities that can't plan. We can't also say we have local authorities, the national authorities that can't plan. There are plans we've had, but we've also been fairly inadequate in terms of our implementation. So there are a number of projects that we've had that are national or local that have not been implemented, which brings us to why that has been the case. And at least for me today, the point I want to share is this. Our economy has not been performing well since the early 90s, which is why we adopted the Economic Structural Adjustment Program. And from the early 90s, well into the 2000s, our economy has also not been performing very well. So what it simply means is this. It's not a local authority or a national authority that provides services. It is the economy that provides services. Because people buy those services. People pay for those services. Right. So when you have an economy that can't afford, you inevitably will not have the services. We may have the plans in place, but we're unable to fund it. Again, when you talk about our inability as a country to attract the kind of differently structured finance that will enable us to implement long-term projects. It was in the late to perhaps close to the 2000s when we had our last major investment programs around which local authorities could plan, get funding that is affordable to provide the service. So, as far as producing plans is concerned, yes, we are behind. Harare's plan at the moment, or even Bulawayo's plan, which Bulawayo is doing a master plan now, but it hasn't been finalized. But Harare is working with the 1994 plan. So yes, at that level, at the level of a plan, we could say we are behind. But at the level of the ability to come up with one and implement it, we are so far behind. So that's why we need, like Wama Besara was saying, a multi-stakeholder conversation that stops passing the blame, and two, that stops undermining the capacity of local governments. Because if we undermine the capacity of councils in terms of access to finance, in terms of independence to plan, in terms of autonomy to run their affairs at the local level, then we will not be able to address this fundamental question. So let's step back and then say, let's enable all the different actors to be able to do what is within their competence. Then we can plan, then we can finance, then we can implement. But if we're not able to capacitate ourselves at the different levels, we will cry, we will not have the water, we will blame councils, we will blame national government, we will blame citizens, but we will not have the water out of a tap. So this is a conversation that, that is looking inward. So you posed the question about Zimbabweans have been going to South Africa, but South African the local authorities are able to supply water, and here we are unable to supply water. One of the reasons why Zimbabweans are going to South Africa and other countries is because they can't find jobs here. And they get into South Africa, they get some form of a job, and they're able to pay for those services. Zimbabweans here are not in employment. They are unable to finance. Back to my dicta, the economy is the one that demands and pays for services. It's not a local authority that then provides service. Even national government, that's why they collect taxes. And if they can't collect the taxes and appropriately budget and utilize those taxes, there will not be major investments of the type we need at the moment.
Right. On those issues of abilities and stuff, I think we also know the solutions, like what St. Francis Chidavanzi here raises, that, there are people who actually owe city and local authorities, government departments, for example, owing huge in terms of bills for city councils. And if this would be paid, I'm sure we will start making headway. And Mahachi raises something here. I think planning has been done, e.g. Kunji Dam to augment water, but is the execution construction? Could it be financing or something? Yes. Something else. And yes, like what Dr. Chatiza says, the economy plays a major role. Indeed, the economy plays a major role, but my biggest concern is unless we begin to look inward, like what you have said, Dr. Chatiza, we'll be here again 5 years to come and speaking about the same things. We need to begin to find solutions to these problems. So yes, urbanization is not a problem. It could be for economic benefits, but what should we do? I'll come to you, Engineer Mbiza. I know you had disappeared for a while, but here we are. What is the way forward? How do we get to a place where residents are able to get their water on their taps? Maybe let's just listen to this audio, and then we come to you, Engineer Mbiza. Let's just listen to this audio.
Okay.
Iyi nyaya yemvura nyaya yatotishungurudza sitingatomboite because the water supply is very erratic. Pano pacho painozonzi yauya mvura yacho inouya ine tsvina yekuti sometimes it looks like kuchera a cup of coffee from the tap iri mvura iri kunze inofanira kunge ichinwiwa nekubikiswa. It's just so horrible. Isi tatoshaya kuti todini nyaya yemvura iyoyi. Ezvinezvi munhu wakutongoziva kuti kana uchida kubika kana uchida mvura wakutongoenda kunotsvaga kumalocal bowls. Apa isu tini tichitoti try kuita social distancing timbogarawo mudzimba, but it's not easy when you don't have water.
Right. Let's listen to this one as well.
Honestly, you know, water is life. And we are somehow worried, especially us and Manogara Kuma high density suburbs, because mvura sometimes inogona kuyoka nakuti from Monday to Thursday, then weekend inenge isiko. Sometimes inogona tanga kubuda mto Thursday and Friday inenge isiko. Then painouya probably inenge yakatosviba mvura iyi, inenge yakasvibisa. Then but pane my improvements, or sometimes imwe yakuya yakachena. But yagadzana, so you have to see that this water is dirty and we cannot drink it. And it's not like my bowls, and my bowl, Kachona kana historical kune wondo, but vanenge vachipindira as nakana order, you know, my ghetto communities. So we are very worried. I don't know, is the council doing something? Kutitinga so mvura.
These are concerns that are being raised by residents around water, the water situation.
Yakonzeresa matambudziko hobho nokuti musha wedu unorwana tinakudiwe takapuwa mabhohos akawanda, especially inoyi seengineering kwandinogara inonzi one borehole pamuzere rapo, and sometimes rinenge rakakiwa hatizoti rinokiwa nani. You would find kuti one household ine vanhu 20 and vanhu 20 vese vanenge vachishandisa one toilet. Saka you would find kuti nyaya yekushaya mvura iri kutokonzeresa zvihombe zvinana korera, tsvina, even covid yacho iyoyo hatikwanise kuti tiiprevent because inotoda kuti tiite utsanana, tigeze maoko. Tiri kurecycla mvura, ukasuka maplesi usaichengeta woisukisa masikati then uchazodirisa mutoilet. Even utsanana chaiwo pamba haubude kana pasina mvura. Saka itori huge challenge. Dai matoona kuti mungaite sei. Chokwadi zvingabatsira kuti tiwane mvura. We cannot go for 1 week solid tisina mvura. Even dzatinenge takachengetedzawo dzacho dzinotosvika pakuita sei pakutopera. Dambudziko remvura ratonyanya. Dai zvagona kuti tawana mabatsirikiro atingaite. Tinotomboisawo zvichemo kune vakawandawo kuti tibatsirwe padambudziko remvura. I hope pamuchaadhresawo pachaitwawo change. Thank you so much.
These are concerns that people are raising on a daily basis in our communities, and we have local authorities running the affairs of councils.
Mvura said Kunoku used to be a really big problem, isn't we are kind of Mondays, then stays only up until Thursday. Then afterwards, more problems. Now, supply rate, improve significantly, almost every single day. As it goes on, it's going up for maybe a day or less, then it's back. But the biggest problem now is that Zinwa is not quite reliable when it comes to water purity. Purification now has to be improved significantly because we can't trust Zinwa enough to drink the water. We have to make sure that even in fruit has to be boiled before we drink it. But on the supply side, they seem to be doing okay. But then, can they ensure us? That's the question of the safety of the water. That's the main problem this side.
Tiri kuzvizwa kazvirikutaurwa nani.
Yeah, we can. Can I come in?
Yes, please come in.
I think they are raising very pertinent issues, and I wanted to come in because as an experienced urban administrator and a person who has been working on those issues for a while, I wanted to say that there is already, just before I left, the 32 urban local authorities were working on this issue. It is a real thorn in their flesh. And they had gotten to a stage where they had now said there's so much of blame game. There's so much of money being put in issues that are not solving the problem. And then they came up with an idea to come up with a baseline. Where are our real problems? In the water provision cycle, where are the issues? And they termed it a water audit, which they should be taking, I think, by some time this year, to say, why are we not having the water? Where is the water going? For example, in their preliminary studies, they already discovered that an average of 47% of the water that is treated cannot be accounted for. And that pushed them to say, no, we can't have this situation. People are not having water, but we can't account for about 47% of the water. We need to have a study that then tells us where the problem is. Is it the problem of raw water? Is it the problem of treatment? Is it the problem of distribution? Is it the problem of vandalism? Is it the problem of paying? We may be blaming one another on things that are not real issues. So the aim is to come up with a baseline to say these are the issues. And then from there, we then would come up with a strategy. How do we deal with that as a government, as a people? We are in a devolution process. What will national government do to improve the water situation? What will the provincial government do in terms of providing that? What will be the council doing? What is the person, Dr. Chatiza, as a person in this family, what is it that he should do to improve that water? But this should come from empirical evidence of that study, which I think we need to support these local authorities in this endeavor. Both national, provincial, local, and the individuals, companies need to support this endeavor. Because if you have a person who is sick, the first thing is a diagnosis. There's no way we will just move and say people are not paying, therefore that's why we don't have water. And the people will be saying, we are not providing with us with water, so you are wrong. So I would want to say that to Zimbabwe, that the initiative that the 32 urban local authorities have come up with is a very noble initiative, and that everyone must rally behind that, so that by the end of 2021, when we begin 2022, even the national budget is addressing the real issues. The council budget is addressing the real issues. The population is addressing the real issues. This, I think, will help us move forward and remove us from our corners where we are blaming each other from each one's corner. Because now we will have heard that so many people are not paying. And we are saying, as a population, what do we do to assist them? Why are they not paying? We are saying this council is inefficient. It's using too much money to produce too little water. How do we address it? And so forth. So I think that needs to be done. And this needs to be done by Zimbabweans. Our problem has been we go outside, look for people to come in, they bring foreign solutions, and we can't proceed. But I think the initiative here is such that if we did it on our own, and we are able to be monitoring it on our own, we should be able to solve this problem once and for all.
Engineer Mbiza, why would we lose 47% of water? We treat water, you treat water, and we lose 47%, seriously.
That's a big problem, Yvonne. That's a very big problem that we have currently in the nation. And I would like to point out that what Mr. Malesera is saying is very key. It's very critical. Like I said, in my previous comment, I actually say that we need to understand our current problems. And when we understand our current problems, now we can act. So in the issues that were being raised by those residents who were speaking, I think I picked up about 7 pertinent issues that they were talking about, and I'm going to go one by one, on very important is that we also need to make sure that we are supporting the initiatives that the city councils are coming up with as the residents, and also like what Mr. Mavisara is saying, provincial of the current initiative, which is the national water audit, because in national in water auditing, you really get to understand what is the problem. And so even when you are going to invest, you invest knowing exactly where the problem is, and this will be easy to the decision makers as well, to make sure that people are actually able to get the proper service. And 47% of non-revenue water is a lot, because there's a lot of resources, there's a lot of time that has gone in also in making sure that this water is treated. But you lose 47% of it. So going back to what these residents were saying, there's someone who was talking about dirty water coming out of taps, and they are saying it's dirty because they can see the color there. And also someone was commenting saying that when you let the water sit, later on you see sludge in the container. Yes, this is a problem, but I want people to understand also that from an engineering perspective, the water treatment system is a system that needs time, especially considering the fact that Zimbabwe uses the conventional water treatment system. So the conventional water treatment system, it needs chemicals, and these chemicals that we normally call the coagulants, they need their time in the water. But because of the high demand, the plant operators in most cases, they do not give the time that is needed for the treatment to happen. But not because they want that, it's because of the demand. The water treatment plants are being pushed. So when you push infrastructure, in the end, what you get is a bit problematic. So what they are calling this the particles that they are seeing in their water now is actually the sludge that was supposed to remain in the water treatment plant. So
All right, engineer,
yeah.
I'll come there and cut you. I think we're going to have a little bit more of detail on that when we tackle the issue of water quality and wastewater management in the next episodes that are coming. For today, we want to talk about this element of demand and supply, and the inability or the failure of our country to come up with policies or strategy to make sure that we execute the plans that were put in place for starters, but also to develop new plans that are relevant to address some of the challenges that we are having today. Yes, we may have an influx today in the urban areas because of the economy that we have, but eventually, if we have a properly planned city, if we've got properly planned urban areas, it is going to be beneficial to everyone. And we have tackled the issue of sustainable solutions to customized problems. And you talked about, Mr. Mavesera, you spoke about the national water audit being one of the strategies being used in order to begin to put money where the problem is. Now, as we round off this particular conversation around urbanization and water supply, I just want to hear your thoughts. I just want to hear your thoughts. We've got small towns that are sprouting. We've got growth points that are becoming semi-urban areas. I was in Mashingo in Bikita, and I passed by one of the places where my mom built in Chikato there. And I was surprised because it's no longer Kumusha. Kwatataka Jaira, their lines and houses are properly, placed. People have got my flush toilets and everything. And so we are moving in that. Even in rural areas, we are beginning to see an urbanization process of those rural areas. From what we have spoken about and what we have observed, what we have researched, and etc., what would you say is the best foot forward for Zimbabwe in order for us to improve our water supply systems in urban areas? I'll start with you, Dr. Chatiza.
Okay, thank you so much. My first point is around the calming down and sitting down as people and addressing our local and macro governance dynamics as effectively as we can. And to elaborate on that point, let me respond to the question you posed earlier around the perception that local authorities, or the realities that local authorities close taps in high density areas where the poor need water and leave the rich who are not, some of whom are not paying for the services. Again, that can be addressed at different levels, but at the moment, what we need to do is to make sure that we have the evidence that we need for that, and then we have conversations that identify why certain areas are not, certain individuals or certain households are abusing a service or using a service and not paying for it. That is very difficult to be done on the basis of a command type of way only. That is not sustainable. What for me would be sustainable is where we use our local governance system to be able to enforce the appropriate behavior, reward the appropriate behavior, because the people we consider to be not paying bills are also the same ones we celebrate when they do certain things. So we need to tone down our blaming of each other, but have conversations that enable us to begin to be sustainable. Because where we are at the moment, we have urbanization. The only negative dimension that I wanted to bring to our attention and to those that are listening is if we don't have the right infrastructure, we end up polluting the water bodies from which we are getting the water. We end up polluting the environment, which also then generates the water that we want to have. So we need to find a way of making sure that we have conversations even at neighborhood level. And when participatory budgeting started, one of the major dictums was pay what you can and get what you need. So if all of us are able to pay what we can, whether it's in a slum, whether it's an informal settlement, we engage with our local authorities and to consistently upgrade our relationships to a respectful and responsible form of relationship. The polarization we have around delivery of services will slowly wear down. We have come this far, perhaps over a 30-year period. So we can't expect a magic wand to address the challenges we're facing. So we need to find a way of calming down, using our local governance structures, our councillors, our political parties, all of them, not just one, to have conversations under trees and then say, water gets delivered if we all contribute, even in kind. At the moment, we think we want to blame either as NPF national government or MDC, the local government, and that doesn't get water out of a tap. What gets water out of a tap is a conversation of local governance and respecting each other and then addressing the issues based on evidence. Otherwise, we'll be here in another 5 years if we don't start that political consciousness at an individual and family level and the community level. That then enables us to engage our local authorities with considerable understanding that not all of us will have a bore. We can't have urban bores anyway. They're also not sustainable.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chatiza. And you raised this issue that I was actually thinking about. Like, why should we even have boreholes in the urban area in the 21st century? We should have technology that helps us to harvest water and supply it to our residents. I want us to listen to this one last resident before Mr. Mawesera and Engineer Mbiza come through. So let's just listen to this one.
The city of Harare water is a bit dangerous to drink as it is. You have to boil it. And I think the reason is simple. Chivero Tem is actually in a catchment area of all the dirty water which flows into it. Imagine all the raw sewage is flowing into Lake Chivero, and cleaning it to become really drinkable is a bit difficult. Was every raw sewage flowing from the high density suburb is going to Lake Chivero. and it's flowing as it is. And I think drinking it is a bit putting yourself at risk. And so we opt for either bottled water, boil it. Boreholes also have become a bit dangerous to drink the water straight from there without using a water guard. So for me, I make sure that even the water I get from the borehole, I put water guard. But from the tap, I can't drink it. Even after boiling it, you see some debris, some foreign objects on top of the water when you boil it. So I think it needs to be fixed. But then with Chivero downstream, there's a bit of very expensive way of purifying the water. Thank you.
And these are residents, they are noting some of these challenges that we are likely to face, when we try to clean that water that we have there. Engineer Mbiza, your parting words as we close this conversation. I see Mr. Mawesera is missing in action. Over to you, Mr. Engineer Mbiza.
Okay, thank you, Yvonne. Thank you. I would like to say that I definitely believe that these local problems need our own local solutions, and the governance issues are very important for us to be able to address the current problems. And our local authorities, I don't think that they are failing per se, but they need us to assist them by all means possible, you know. So like we've been discussing now, the issues especially to do with getting to understand our problems and then creating our local solutions on our own to address these problems with our own capacity, you see. Because the issues now of saying, oh, now let's bring in, foreigners to come and help us to do A, B, C, D. In most cases, we are here with white elephants, and which don't really help anyone. So it's very important for our residents also to understand that you know water treatment is actually an engineering undertaking. It's not something that you can simply do even at home. I see a lot of people are doing certain things trying to bring the water to cleanliness. Yes, it's important. It's very good, but they also need to consult, especially the people who are within the local authorities, whether it's okay to do A or B. I'll give you an example. If someone is going to boil water, for instance, they're saying, "Oh, we are boiling water from Lake Chivero and the likes." What you are going to do there is that you are going to probably create what we call trihalomethanes, which are very cancerous. You see, because now what you are doing is the water, you know that it's not probably adequately treated, and then it has chlorine, and then when you boil that water, you may think that you are actually treating the water, but what you are doing could actually be worse. I have, I have faith in our local authorities, and I think that we just have to support them. We need to
Oh,
support them. Let's support our local authorities. Let's work with them. Let's consult them all the time. I think that will be my last statement. Thank you.
right. Engineer Mbiza, I'm going to need you in the third Tuesday because we're going to be talking about water quality. And I really think we need this education. Right now, I'm just thinking, oh my God, are we are we doing something bad with our water by boiling it? Because we have the assumption that if we boil water, it will be cleaner. But all the same, we want to tackle that issue on the next Tuesday as we look at
Okay.
water quality. Michelle Mahachi says, I think the public-private partnership approach, a structure which promotes private players to invest in water provision, much the same way toll gates are operating. So I get a sensing and a feeling that some residents feel that priority is not being placed, especially on the subject of water. Taku concentrate on ekuisa maboho anima solar panels and thinking that we are doing very well to supply water to our residents, but Mahachi feels that we need to have a public-private partnership approach to water supply and provision. Now, in closing, Mr. Mawesera, any last words that you may have? I think I'm getting a little bit of feedback. There's a device that
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. In concluding, I would want to say that to put the fears of people at bay, because a lot of work has already been done. The 32 local authorities, like I said, they've already come up with a strategy that will see us go through a water audit that will establish the baseline from where people are able to finance the real issues in terms of water. And national government has come up with the devolution concept. What it means, it deals then with the issue of urbanization and water supply, in the sense that Harare, all people flock to Harare because that's where everything is. And under devolution, ZIDA and the other institutions responsible for deployment of investment will then say there is water in Kanyemba. We need companies that will go to Kanyemba to work there, so that people then flock to Kanyemba where already there is water. Those are short-term solutions. When we move people to where there's already water, because we can't develop Harare water as fast as we would want to do. But there's already water in Kanyemba, there's already water in Masvingo at Tokwem Kosi, and with devolution in place, we then say we link devolution to water supply and say that industry should move. We have an industrial park close to water at Tokwem Kosi under devolution, but this should come from then the water audit, which will have said we can't, Masvingo no longer has enough water, or Zvisava no longer will have, cannot support any other population in terms of water supply. But why are the people coming is for industry. We go to devolution, they talk to ZIDA, all investors now go to those areas. We have arrested urbanization to areas where there's no water. So we now are working on urbanization so that we are able to deal with water supply. We reverse the negative effects of urbanization on water supply by engaging into devolution in terms of our industrial development, so that we are able to supply water. But this should be informed from empirical evidence. Hence, the water audit is key and is urgent, should have been done yesterday. Thank you.
Awesome. Indeed, the National Water Audit is going to be a very interesting document if we can all get sight of it, because I think the solution lie therein. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining me in this conversation, and I hope that in the next 4 installments that we have, I'll still be able to call on you to come on board. We keep on trying to get hold of Zinwa. We sent an email to them, but they have not responded to our request for their presence, because they are the regulatory body responsible for infrastructural development around water bodies. So we continue to make calls and emails to them so that they can also join us in this conversation. After all, we all need to come together in order to deal with the problems. Thank you so much, Dr. Chatiza, for coming through. Thank you, Babangu Mawesera, for coming through. My brother, Engineer Mbiza, God bless you.
We say thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Zimbabwe, for joining us on today's special edition of Frank Talk, where we are focusing on water and water and water. This is the month of March, and in the month of March, we celebrate World Water Day. And as we celebrate World Water Day on the 21st, 22nd of March, we thought to have this installment of conversation around urbanization and its impact on water supply. So thank you so much for joining us. If you've got any more contributions, questions, please feel free to send them through. If you want to be in touch with us, do feel free to use our Facebook page, inbox us in there and we will definitely get back to you. Or you can use our WhatsApp number. If you go on our website, www.zimdaily.com, you'll be able to send a WhatsApp message to us and we can have a conversation further to these issues. My name is Yvonne Muchaka. This is Zimbabwe Daily, and to the team that I'm working with, we thank you and we say have yourselves a wonderful rest of day.